Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Ajnantimidandasya Jnananjanachalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschajate Shatarine. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhakta Brinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patithanam bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. I'm very honored and grateful to have this opportunity to serve you by trying to speak Srila Prabhupada's message from Srimad Bhagvatam. This beautiful temple and the wonderful devotees inspired by His Holiness Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj are a great light in this world. His Holiness Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj, my very worshipable, esteemed God brother, I thank you very much. And to each and every one of you. We are reading today from Srimad Bhagvatam, Canto 6, Chapter 4, entitled the Hamsa Guhya Prayers, text number 8. This particular verse is being spoken by Soma, the Lord of the Moon, to the Prachetas. Leading up to this verse is a wonderful story that is spoken through various cantos of the Srimad Bhagavatam. One of the great descendants of Dhruva Maharaj was Prachini Barhi. He was a very religious man, but he followed the principles of karma kanda, elevation to higher material states of enjoyment, ultimately leading to liberation. He was performing yagyas or sacrifices where animals were being offered. Still, he was a king, he was in the line of Dhruva, and he understood the principles of tapasya. So his 10 sons, the Prachetas, he instructed them to go to the forest, into the wilderness, to perform tapasya for the pleasure of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Vishnu. The Prachetas just left their palace. They were princes. They left the luxuries, the comforts of their palace in the western direction. They came upon a magnificent lake, which was huge. It appeared like an ocean, but it was completely peaceful. There were no waves. This was the abode of Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva appeared from the lake with his associates. Vidura is asking Maitreya Muni, how is this possible? That Lord Shiva is so difficult to see. And even more difficult to have a conversation with directly, personally. Why is it that Lord Shiva appeared to these boys? It was because they were devotees of Krishna or Vishnu. And being in the line of Dhruva Maharaj, who also, much younger, at 5 years old, went to the forest to perform tapasya, he saw the Supreme Lord. So Lord Shiva told them, because you are devotees of Vishnu, therefore I have come to help you to realize the perfection of life. He gave them a beautiful mantra, which is actually prayers. Prayers in glorification of the Lord Vishnu, Krishna. In these prayers he describes the beautiful form of the Lord, and ultimately the glories of pure devotional service, bhakti, and how that is the means by which we can please the Lord, which is the ultimate highest perfection of life. Culminated in the glories of the hearing and the chanting of the names and the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Prachetas entered into the water. And there they meditated upon, they chanted the beautiful prayers of Lord Shiva. Not only did they remember and chant, but they completely imbibed the spirit of those prayers. For 10,000 years. At that time, still in the water, Lord Vishnu personally appeared to them. He was riding on his carrier Garuda. He blessed them. That famous verse, he said to the Prachetas, because of your loving relationships, your friendship with each other, I am very pleased with you. Because in your relationships with each other, you have kept serving me and pleasing me in the center. I offer you any benediction. The Prachetas offered heartfelt prayers. In their prayers, many well-known verses were spoken. He described how even a moment, they described to Lord Vishnu, even a moment's association with your devotees is a greater benediction than elevation to the higher planets, than liberation from all the sufferings of this material world. For those who are in this world where they must face inevitable death, there is no greater blessing than the association of your devotees. Yatredyante katamrishtas. That when your devotees come together to discuss your glories, your names, and are absorbed in that process, then there's no longer any envy between them, at least for the time being. They prayed simply like Dhruva Maharaj, their great-great-great-grandfather. There's no greater benediction than to serve you, my Lord, to remember you in the spirit of the servant of your devotees. Lord Vishnu, bless them, that whatever you are desire, I give you that benediction. And then Lord Vishnu, he told them what would happen in the future. And this is what happened. When they came out of the water, they saw throughout the whole world, it was covered by thick, dense population of trees. There was no space for anything to grow. People were starving. While they were in their tapasya, worshipping the Supreme Lord according to the directions of Lord Shiva, Narada Muni happened to come to their father, Prachani Barhi's palace. Now, King Prachani Barhishat was very cultured. He offered all honors to Narada Muni, offered him a seat, his own throne. He sat at Narada Muni's feet. Narada Muni understood that being entangled in materialistic religion and being a king who has so much power, so much wealth, so much influence over others, how to actually get him to hear this message. Surely Narada Muni, if he spoke to him the absolute truth, which he was going to speak, Prachani Barhi would have listened very respectfully, but how to reach his heart? So Narada Muni first began, don't you know that by killing all these innocent animals, you're not really pleasing the Supreme Lord, the goal of life? And not only that, all these animals, after you die, are going to come back and give you the pain that you caused them. And he said, let me tell you a story. He said there was a king named Puranjan. And he started telling the stories about all the problems this Puranjan had. And people in this world, they like to hear stories about the problems that big people have. There's so many movies, so many, the news is filled with it, the magazines are filled with it. In fact, there are newspapers and magazines that speak about nothing else. It's called gossip, which is kind of a definition of prajalpa. Prajalpa means unnecessary, unwanted talk about mundane things. But especially when it's about the faults of others. So because Narada Muni was telling this story with so much excitement about all the defects and problems and challenges of Puranjan, he was sacrificing animals in the name of religion. He was aspiring for materialistic goals in his life. And I'm not going to go through the whole story, but so many problems. Prajanibarhi was in rapt attention, listening to every word. And Narada Muni was getting the message through these stories. And at the culmination, after he spoke everything he wanted to speak, Prajanibarhi said, I think what you're speaking about, Puranjan, is actually me. I'm going to die. My life is going to be wasted. Narada Muni said, yes, it's you. So he heard the message. Bhagavad Gita tells, Bahunam janmanam ante jnanavamam papadyate vasudeva sarvamiti samahatma sudurlabhaha. After many births and deaths of cultivating knowledge and practicing religious principles, when one finally comes to the true culmination and goal, one surrenders to Vasudev, knowing him to be the cause of all causes and all that is. King Prajanibarhi accepted Narada Muni as his guru and followed his instructions. Following in the footsteps of his great-great-grandfather Dhruva Maharaj, he left the world. He left his palace and entered into the forest immediately to meditate upon and chant the names and the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. But while he was gone, his sons, the 10 Prachetas, they were in the water, completely away from all human civilization, performing tapasya. And in the meanwhile, there was no leadership in the world. So the trees just grew and grew and grew. This is an important principle. Without leadership, without direction, without tapasya, which is the base tapodivyam putra gayena sattvam, which is the basis of the directions of the Supreme Lord for human society, we must perform tapasya. We must be willing to abide by the teachings of the great souls, Mahajano Yena Gata Sabanta, and accept what's favorable for devotional service and reject what's unfavorable for devotional service. On every level, social, spiritual, material, without guidance, without direction, without leadership, anarthas naturally grow within our hearts. And within the world around us, so many difficulties naturally come. So here are the Prachetas. They're coming out of the water after seeing Lord Vishnu, getting the personal direction and blessings of Lord Shiva. They're very highly self-realized souls. Vishnu said, "You have pleased me. That's the perfection of life." Now, they're the kings. Their father's gone. And they see in the absence of leadership the problems of the world. People, animals, so much starvation, suffering. The Prachetas became angry. Angry due to compassion for all the sufferings of the souls that was taking place. The trees just took over everything. In their anger, from their mouths came a massive wind and fire. This fire and wind, blowing fire, were burning every tree on earth to ashes. They had special potency from their tapasya. As they were burning all the trees, Soma, the Lord of the moon, descended. In another place it explains that initially Brahma came down too. But in this particular verse in Srimad Bhagvatam, Soma is speaking that he came to appease the anger of the Lord. Sukadev Goswami tells. Appease the anger of the Prachetas. O greatly fortunate ones, Soma said, you should not kill these poor trees by burning them to ashes. Your duty is to wish the citizens, prajas, all prosperity, and to act as their protectors. Srimad Bhagavatam and Srila Prabhupada elaborates how for a king, every living being is your praja of a leader. And real leadership is to protect. These verses describe in this chapter that a true devotee of Vishnu sees that every living being is a part of Krishna. Ishvara sarvabhutanam hriddeshya janatishthati. Krishna is situated within the heart of every living being. And therefore, whether one is in a tree body or an animal body or an insect body or a human body, the body is a temple of the Supreme Lord. And therefore, all beings must be honored and never unnecessarily pained. You must protect these trees, because after all, the trees are giving so much food in the form of fruits and flowers to the birds and the insects and the human beings. What we find here, the Prachetas, what they were doing was in the service of the Lord, and it was also in the service of their citizens. But it was not balanced properly. The same thing happened with their great-great-grandfather, Dhruva Maharaj. When he was performing his tapasya under the directions of Sri Narada Muni, he also had the personal darshan of Vishnu. He was also such a great devotee who later became king. When his brother Uttama was killed by a yaksha, he went to find that person in the abode of the yakshas, and the other yakshas wanted to protect him, and there was a war. Dhruva Maharaj, by his incredible powers, he was annihilating the entire race of the yakshas. And at that time, Kuvera came down to try to teach Dhruva Maharaj some balance. You perform your service of punishing the person who has engaged in sinful activities, but don't destroy the whole race. So here we find even Dhruva Maharaj, even the Prachetas, they're great devotees. Anger, Srila Prabhupada explains, can be used in the service of the Lord. Hanuman, Arjuna, in order to fulfill their service to Lord Ram, Krishna, they had to become angry. But their anger was guided by their intelligence of what will please the Lord. Bhagavad Gita tells, Kurodad bhavati samohat samoham smriti vibrama smriti shamshat buddhinasho buddhinashat pranashyati. that material anger is different than spiritual anger. Dhyayato vishayan pungsang. Spiritual anger is due to unfulfilled material desires. And by that anger, we become deluded. We lose our memory. Intelligence is lost and we fall into material consciousness and activities. So when anger is controlled by spiritual intelligence, it's an asset to our devotional service according to time, place, and circumstance. But sometimes devotees, even like Dhruva, even like the Prachetas, who were very highly self-realized souls, they were angry for the same purpose, but they got carried away by their anger. And by the mercy of the Lord, great devotees came to them to give them that balance. Dhruva Maharaj stopped annihilating the yakshas and let them live in peace. And the Prachetas, they cleared certainly enough land for agricultural fields, for grains, for vegetables to be growing. Soma was pleased with them. And he presented to them a girl to marry. Very beautiful girl. Her name is Marisha. Kandu Muni was performing tapasya, and the Pramlocha Apsara, a heavenly damsel, had a child with him. After having the child, she left the little child in the forest to be taken care of by the trees. The little baby girl was crying, and Soma, who's the lord of the trees, the vegetation, he came down and put his finger in the mouth of Marisha and nourished her with nectar. And between the trees and Soma, they brought her up. She became the wife of the Prachetas. On the subject of anger, I'd like to speak from another perspective. Today is the appearance day of Radha Kund. When Krishna was living in Vrindavan, Kamsa sent one demon after another to try to kill Krishna. One particular asura, which was one of the last before Krishna left for Mathura, was Aristasura. He came in the form of a gigantic bull. This bull, he was so angry, his eyes were red like fire. From his nostrils, there was burning winds coming in and out. His size, the hump on his back, was mistaken by the clouds as a mountain, and they were forming their clouds around that. He had enormous horns. As he was running, he was tearing the land to pieces. It was like an earthquake. He was growling. He was charging into Vrindavan, and all the cows, the calves, the bulls, all the animals, the Brijabasis, they were terrified. They came running to Govinda. Please save us. Govinda stepped in front of Aristasura. He was charging. His horns were pointed right toward Krishna. And the thorns looked like massive thunderbolts. And Krishna's very nicely spoke to him. He said, "You have caused so much distress and fear to the residents of Vrindavan. Now come before me, I challenge you. I will send you to the abode of death." Aristasura became even more angry. Howled and charged right toward Krishna. Krishna grabbed him by the horns and threw him about 18 steps. That made Arista even more furious. He charged toward Krishna. Krishna took him by the horns with his soft, little, tender, lotus-like hands, and then kicked him, and Aristasura fell down to the ground. Then Krishna, with his lotus-like feet, which the gopis were guilty when they would put his feet on the softest part of their bodies because they would think that Krishna's feet are so soft we might be hurting them. With those same little lotus feet, he repeatedly kicked Arista. And Arista was growling, roaring in pain. His eyes were bulging. He passed urine and stool simultaneously and died. Thus Krishna liberated Aristasura. Afterward, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains from the Puranas, the gopis and Sri Radha, when they met Krishna, they told Krishna that you have committed the sin of killing a male cow. Therefore, we cannot be with you. Krishna said it was the demon. He was going to kill everyone. They said, yes, he was a demon and everything else, but still he was a male cow. So this is a sin. So here the gopis are kind of teaching Krishna balance. He's a demon, but he's a cow. So Krishna said, what do I have to do? And Sri Radharani and gopis told that you must perform tapasya. You must go to every holy place in the whole universe to get purified. So Krishna said, I will do, but why should I leave Vrindavan? I will bring all holy places here. And with the heel of his very soft lotus foot, he made a little imprint in the ground and called for the holy places. All the different holy places of the world and the universe. The holy rivers, the holy kunds, the holy places, they all came in personal forms and offered their obeisances to Krishna, then entered into the little lake that Krishna had created. After it was filled with all the holy place in the form of water, Krishna took his bath. And then he came out. He was very happy. He said, now I am purified. I have taken my bath in all the holy places, and look, it has all come to Vrindavan in my footprint. What have you gopis done? So Srimati Radharani was told by Krishna that now you should bathe in my kund. Because after all, you took the side of a demon. They told Krishna that we will not go in your kund because it is contaminated by the sin of killing a cow. I will make better kund. And here, Srimati Radharani, she and her gopis, they found the hoof prints of Aristasura. those hoof prints were formed by the cruelty, the envy, and the anger of a demon. And they excavated the hoof print by digging with their hands, and some were breaking their bangles off and using their bangles to dig, and they made a kund. Krishna said, I will fill your kund with my waters from Shama Kund, Krishna Kund. They said, no, we will get our own water. So Srimati Radharani and gopis, they made a line with buckets all the way to Manasi Ganga. It's many kilometers. And they were passing the buckets to each other, the water. They were laboring very hard. And Krishna indicated to the personification of all the holy places to approach Sri Radha. And with folded hands, as the representative of all the holy places throughout the universe, he offered beautiful prayers. That our greatest and only desire is that you bless us. Sri Radharani was moved. How can I bless you? What is it that you desire? We desire to fill your lake with our waters. Sri Radharani said, please come. At that moment, the waters of Shama Kund flooded over and poured into Radha Kund to fill it. And then Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, citing from Puranas, tells how Krishna says that this Radha Kund is as dear to me as you. There is no place more dear to me than your Kund. And Sri Radharani says, I will regularly bathe in your Kund because it is most dear to me. And after that, they performed the Ras Lila on the banks of Sri Radha Kund. Srila Prabhupada quotes Sri Rupa Goswami in Upadeshamrita that Mathura is superior to Vaikuntha because Krishna appears in Mathura. And superior to Mathura is the forest of Vrindavan, because that is where Krishna and Sri Radha performed their Ras Lila. The holiest place of Vrindavan is Govardhan, because the most special pastimes of the Lord are there. And superior to even Govardhan is Radha Kund, the holiest of all holy places in all creation, because it is the place where Srimati Radharani and Krishna and their devotees enjoy the highest pleasure with one another. Over the years, Radha Kund and Shama Kund had been forgotten. 4,500 years later, approximately, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to Vrindavan. While he was traveling through the 12 forests of Vrindavan, he came to Aritagram, which is the place where Krishna killed Aristasura. While there, he was looking for Radha Kund and Shama Kund and saw two puddles in a paddy field. He was sitting under a tamal tree at the time. And Sri Krishna Chaitanya Radha Krishna Nahi Anya. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Radha and Krishna in one form. Radha Krishna Pranaya Vikritir Ladini Shaktirasman. The absolute truth is one, but they are forever two, for the purpose of pastimes, of pure love, prem. But those two have again become one. Radha Bhava Duti Subalitam Nomi Krishna Swarupam. Lord Chaitanya is Krishna with the Mahabhava, the love and the complexion of Srimati Radharani. He saw his favorite of all places, Radha Kund and Shama Kund. He went there, he bathed in the waters. The villagers didn't understand this beautiful golden-colored sannyasi. Why is he bathing in these little puddles in a paddy field? He took the mud and made tilak on 12 parts of his body and offered beautiful prayers in glorification of Radha Kund. When the 6 Goswamis came to Vrindavan, Rupa Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami, Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, Gopal Bhatta Goswami, Shri Jiva Goswami, one of the instructions they were given was to relocate or establish the holy places of Krishna's pastimes. Especially Raghunath Das Goswami. Although all the Goswamis had their bhajan kutirs near Radha Kund, Raghunath Das Goswami resided there. And it was here through the visions of Shri Radha Govinda Dev, Radha Giridhari, that he performed his incredible bhajan, his devotional service. And he excavated those paddy fields into beautiful kunds, similar to what we know them as today. Of course, Radha Kund and Shama Kund are supremely holy for our Gaudiya Sampradaya. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, he composed Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita on the banks of Radha Kund, Shama Kund. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, many of his great historical literatures were composed on the banks of Radha Kund and Shama Kund. Raghunath Das Goswami composed his wonderful literatures and performed his bhajan, demonstrating the highest perfections of Madhurya Bhav on Radha Kund and Shama Kund's banks. And Srila Prabhupada tells us he was at Radha Kund with his Guru Maharaj, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And they were walking together. I believe Srila Prabhupada's son was with him also. They were walking on the banks of Radha Kund. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur and Bhakti Vinod Thakur also had bhajan kutirs there. And Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur revealed intimately his heart to our Srila Prabhupada. He explained how his mission, the Gaudiya Math, had grown and developed. But now devotees were fighting over land and property, fighting over who would get more prestigious facilities. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada said, "It will be better if we sell the marble of our temples and print and distribute books." Interestingly, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he said there is fire in the mat. The fire of conflict. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur tells that the different demons of Vrindavan represent different obstacles in the path of pure devotional service in Vrindavan. And one of the demons he describes is the fire. After Krishna danced on the hoods of Kaliya and made him a great devotee, he and the Brijbasis, they decided to take rest on the bank of the Yamuna that night. And as they were sleeping, massive fire to the clouds beyond. It was up to like thick, unpenetratable walls of flames in all four sides around them. They turned to Krishna. Krishna, Krishna Mahabhaga. Please sit. Your cows are really suffering, please. And we are too. Please save us. And Krishna, he just took one little inhalation and swallowed the entire fire. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that fire represents intercommunal conflict among devotees. You see, in Kali Yuga, we have everything to fight about. Kali will give us the reasons, the excuses, the justifications. But we have to be very careful. Anger, which we were talking about before, is also like fire. When we get angry with each other, we have to resolve our differences. With respect. With Vaishnava culture. Thakur Bhaktivinoda says, when there is interconflict among devotees in the community, it is like this demon of fire. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur told Srila Prabhupada, there's fire in the mat, in the form of dissatisfaction of devotees with each other. And he said, then he looked at Srila Prabhupada and said, Srila Prabhupada looked at Srila Prabhupada. He said, if you ever get money, print and distribute books. That took place on the banks of Radha Kund. Srila Prabhupada took that instruction so deeply in his heart. In the 1940s, single-handedly, he started Back to Godhead magazine. He wrote the articles. He had to publish them. And he was the only distributor at the beginning. And later on, when he was living in Vrindavan, we hear about how much challenges he would have, going to Delhi, getting them printed, coming back, going to the tea stalls and to the marketplaces and to the bathing ghats and distributing them. And then gradually, he established his great mission of translating Srimad Bhagvatam. When Srila Prabhupada left Vrindavan for Calcutta, where he boarded the Jaladuta, the Jaladuta came down the eastern coast of India. It passed by Sri Lanka. It came up the eastern coast, and it stopped at the port of Cochin in Kerala. And it was there that the boxes of the publications of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam in 3 volumes were brought on to the Jaladuta. Srila Prabhupada explained, Srimad Bhagavatam is Krishna himself personified. Krishna incarnates as the Srimad Bhagavatam, according to the Srimad Bhagavatam itself. So Srila Prabhupada understood on this journey to the mysterious West, Krishna was with him. And we are this morning and every day at our temples reading from Srimad Bhagavatam. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu called Amala Puranam, the spotless Purana, the Paramhamsa Samhita, the highest of all Vedic literatures, the cream of all Vedic literatures, Nigama Kalpataror Galitam Palam, the fruit of all the Vedas, the ripened fruit that Sukadev Goswami speaks to Parikshit Maharaj. The culmination of Srimad Bhagavatam is Krishna's Leela. After we hear these beautiful stories of the Pandavas and Kunti Devi and the difficulties they had to endure in the service of the Lord, we read about Dhruva Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Ambarish Maharaj, the Prachetas, Ranti Dev. We hear the story of Ram and Hanuman, and it culminates in Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan. And Rupa Goswami reveals to us the great importance of Sri Radha Kund and Shama Kund. Cannot be taken cheaply. The pastimes and the holiness of this holy place is something we should keep above our heads, is something that we are humbled before as we chant the holy names in the mood of the servant of the servant of the servant. The appearance of Radha Kund takes place at midnight tonight. And it is also this appearance day of Virachandra, the son of Nityananda Prabhu, born of Vasudha, who received instructions from Janava Devi. And Virachandra, because we only have 2 minutes, I'll just tell one little story from the Bhakti Ratnakar. There was a very incredible kirtan. It was in the area near Katwa. One of the devotees was installing a deity. This is after Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu had already departed from their earthly pastimes. And Virachandra, the son of Nityananda Prabhu, the personification of his mercy, the personification of Janava Devi's mercy, participated in Sankirtan. As the devotees were chanting and dancing, Virachandra was so intoxicated by the sweetness of Krishna's holy names. Everyone was chanting with all their hearts. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare. Virachandra danced. It is said his father, whenever he danced, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would appear in that place. If Nityananda Prabhu was in some little village in Bengal and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was in Jagannath Puri, or if he was in South India, or if he was in Vrindavan, wherever Nityananda Prabhu danced, Lord Chaitanya in a spiritual form would manifest himself. And here is the extension of Nityananda's mercy, Virachandra dancing. All the devotees were watching his dance. They were feeling his love, his compassion as he was dancing, because his dance was a dance of pure compassion to all living beings. They were enthralled. They were so enlightened with prema. At that time, a blind man, he was there somewhere near the back of the kirtan, and he could hear people talking about and hear their enthusiasm and hear their total transformation of their hearts by seeing Nityananda dance, Nityananda's son. He prayed, I don't want to see anything else in this world. I was born blind, but if only for a moment I could see your dance. And suddenly his eyes opened, and with perfect vision, Virachandra danced before him and restored his vision. But he really didn't want to use his eyes for anything else except in the service of the servant of the Lord's devotees. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.